I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
Very welcome to episode 160 of the Irish Photography Podcast. My name is Darren. I'm your host as usual, and I'm going to talk to somebody this evening who I'm really excited to talk about, because his photography is something that I've really enjoyed looking at on a regular basis, and I've already identified his style. And I'll get into that, I suppose, as we go through the conversation as well. So without any further ado, welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast, Dermot Garland. How are you getting on, man?
I'm not bad, Darren. How are you getting on? Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much for coming on, man. You know, like I said, I've been following your work there for a while, and I've been looking at it going, wow, that's not a banger. I'm running out of certified bangers on the old Fridays, so it's getting a bit hard.
Well, it goes both ways, because first-time caller, long-time listener, big fan of the podcast, and I've always listened to him driving around and stuff. So, yeah,
good
to be here.
Good stuff. Yeah, well, look, to have you on. I'm really excited to kind of get under the skin and get into the nuts and bolts of your photography journey so far, and I'm sure we're going to have a few laughs as well along the way. So
yeah,
that's the most important part about it. So I suppose, look, even before we get into all of that, let's start out right from the get-go. Who is Dermot?
Okay, so I am a 35-year-old web and digital developer from Dublin, South County Dublin. So I'm in Ballantyre. I'm at the foot of Tree Rock and about 10 minutes drive from Dunleary. So I'm in a lovely little spot as far as photography options go. Predominantly I'm a web developer, but then in every role that I think that I've had as far as my work has gone, I've always found myself with the camera. So is it like with a conference and event company, and I'd be out doing the photography or doing the video, and then eventually then I think around the same time that I got my first Canon camera was around the same time that I went out on my own as a freelancer.
Very good.
And I found myself, and I was doing a lot of photography work, portrait stuff and food photography, and it was going really well. But I think after a while then of doing that same kind of work and the same kind of anonymous stuff, I started getting really into the kind of landscapey type of thing, type shots, and I started concentrating on that, and then really trying to figure out how to take photos properly. I had an idea in my head what I wanted. I had an idea, but I just didn't know how to get there. And I was like, I could see it, and other people's like, how could I not just do this? And me and my Canon 1200D with the 18 to 55, and I just so it kind of started me off, and it kind of came across as a bit of a challenge. And the more I got into it, the more I started playing with it, and then I suppose I just started trying to figure it out. So it's just been kind of a learning process since that time. So
Very good. And I suppose, you know what, it's a learning curve for everybody. You're always going to be learning, no matter what you think you knew yesterday, you're going to know something new the following day, you know. So, and I think, like you kind of alluded to a couple of things there. Was it photography started recently for you, or was it photography from a young age? Did you always have a camera when you were growing up, or did all of a sudden you go, oh, there's a camera, I've figured that out? Where did the passion come from the photography point of view?
So it was when I was younger. My granddad always had cameras around. My granddad made his money in cameras back in the 60s. He was bringing in Fuji and Agfa, and like there was when he passed, he gave me a box of cameras, like Polaroid land cameras and Super 8 video things. So they were always around when I was growing up. And then my dad's like a computer technician as well, so the technology side from him has always been there. So I've always been kind of playing around with it. And then it came to my 30th birthday, and my dad got me a Canon 1200D with the basic lens on it, and I thought I was the tits. I was like, I've got first time a DSLR with manual mode, and I'd been taking photos before on my phone, you know, and I could appreciate a good photo. I didn't understand what I would appreciate about it or what it was, but like that's nice, you know. And I would always try to do this type of stuff on my phone, but never with the proper result that I would see or that I would want. And then again, through doing little bits of work here and there, and, you know, I was doing kind of jobs here and there, and I get a couple of quid, and then I bought like a Samyang 14mm. I was like, yeah, I'll just do astrophotography. breeze what I was doing at all. I think I ruined more shots than I did get good shots. Like it was terrible. So, but then after a while, then I kind of just stuck with it, and I got myself a Canon 80D and the Mavic Air, the drone, and that's where it really kicked off. So that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago at this stage. And yeah, the passion's been going strong since then.
And it's a very, very cheap passion, isn't it? Camera gear, you can just buy
it. It is, yeah. You can tell that to my missus, right? I'll make sure she hears this part of the episode.
Well, you know what I said this, you've probably heard it before, I hope when I die my wife doesn't sell my camera gear for what I told her it cost me.
Brilliant.
It is a great hobby though, and it's not even a hobby, great passion to have, let's put it that way. But most people start out as a hobby, and when you kind of starting out and you get a camera in your hand, you go, you know what, exactly that, I can do the lot. I'm the bee's knees and the cat's pajamas, and you try your hand at everything and stuff like that. And you've mentioned a couple of things there, food photography and landscape photography. Have you tried all different types of genres of photography now because you had the camera next to you in the part of your professional life that brought the camera with you, let's just say?
Yeah, I would have. I've done food photography. I've done automotive photography. I've done conferences and events. I've done portrait. I've done fitness, and then I've done video as well for all of these things. So through work, I did a campaign with the LVA, the Licensed Veterinarian Association, and the Taste.ie, and it was a tough one, I tell you, right? So I had to go around the country, and I'd organise this in advance, or it'd be organised for me, and I'd have to do maybe 4 or 5 pubs or restaurants in a day, and I'd show up, and they'd send out their 5 or 6 dishes, and I'd take photos of each one, and I'd have to eat them at the end, which is really tough. Do you know what I mean? So so that was my job for a bit. So that was one really good. So I got to do the kind of a lot of food photography, which was great. With the automotive side, so for the past couple of years I do a lot of work with Dundee, so I'm kind of on the road for them, taking photos of garages and forecourts and yards and cars and whatever it might be. So there's that aspect as well, a lot of video with that as well, and quite a bit of drive, and I kind of be up and down the country a lot, like good opportunity to listen to your podcast.
Absolutely, and give it a nice plug on its own plug. Yeah,
absolutely. And then just through working with different companies, because I go in as a web developer, that's my bread and butter, and then they're like, oh, you can also use a camera, so I was working with a conference and event company for a while, and then they were like, look, will you come over, we have a client, Specsavers, and they were like, we have a conference in Norway, we need someone to photograph and do video for it. So I said, okay, we'll do that. I got a friend of mine, Sinead, to come with me, and we went over, and she looked after the video, I looked after the photos.
Very good.
It was a great success, and everything that I've done has been a little bit more progression. I've been trying to kind of refine it and hone it in, and basically I'm learning as I go, and that's what my photography is to me at the moment. It's like a work in progress. Every time I think that I know something, it opens a door up to me knowing absolutely nothing, and I kind of see, there's a lot more to this, and then I'm kind of like, okay, now I'm challenged. So yeah, I've done quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You said a couple of things there I kind of want to expand on. Every single day is a school day. You are going to be learning. But if you look back on what you thought was a banger 2 years ago, I know you look at that and go, oh, Jesus, hang on a second, I've advanced so much more now since then. And now, fast forward 2 years from now, and the world's your oyster and what you'll be able to do and what you'll have learned to do and stuff like that as well. So I think it's a great thing, like I said, to evolve, but also to look back and see how you've progressed, because you actually have a tangible thing that you can look at and see your progression, as opposed to what you think you were able to do. When you produce an image, there it is. And then you look back and go, Jesus, I remember that when I remember editing that shot going, that's it, done. And now 2 years later, you look back and go, geez, what was I thinking? So like, I think that's what I love about photography, even from my own point of view. I mean, I'm still learning. I don't know what I'm doing, but most of the time I'm making it up as I go along. And it works. It gets me out. It gets me in enjoying the landscape, let's just say. And that's where, from your images, and I look at your images, and like, we alluded to it there, you're a regular contributor every single week when I do the Insta shares and the Friday feature on the Instagram page. And your shots, I'm running out of certified bangers. I mean, every single one I look at, I go, there's another one. I can't just turn it into the Dermot Garland, Friday feature page. It has to be other people as well. I can, yeah. but it leads me to the question, I mean, like, you have so many images that you put up, and like, how often do you actually get out from the landscape point of view with your camera? Do you squeeze it in whenever you can? Or as you're driving around, you'll say, okay, you know what, I'm here, I've got the camera in the boot, bang, I'll grab a shot. How often do you get out?
So I think I'm quite seasonal, to be honest, and then time of the day. So during the summer, I find it very difficult to shoot. It's very hard to get up to try to get
Mm-hmm.
blue hour, sunrise, or sunset. It's a
Yeah.
bigger commitment than it is. So I like my autumn to spring, and that's my bread and butter, to be honest. What I tend to do is I kind of go out in bursts. Depending by the weather, you might get a nice week of like kind of hectic weather, and maybe pick out a spot and go around the different places around Dublin. But yeah, I generally get out in the colder times during the winter a lot more, and you get much crispier shots as well with the cold, especially a sunrise and stuff as well. So that's it. And at the moment, I find myself, I'm kind of in an editing season at the minute. I'm going through all my photos from the year, because I haven't been out to be able to go out shooting now in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think.
Okay.
And I'm just going through my library, because what I tend to do is I shoot and I sit on my images for ages, and it's a bad habit, I know, but it's I just sit on them, and then depending on how I'm feeling or the kind of edit style I'm going for, certain images will fit into that type, that kind of mood that I'm going for. So at the moment, I'm kind of really trying to focus on that and the photography itself, and trying to find a bit more simplicity. And also, I'm trying to let my photography mature, I think is probably the best way to say it. Like, I'm trying to kind of relax away from the mad, vibrant colors that I was like. As I said at the start there, like, my photography is like a work in progress. When I started taking photos, I was really pushing sliders too far and
Spinal Tap 11, yeah.
Yeah, oh God, I was a devil for that stuff, absolute devil for it. But pushing the sliders too far, too much saturation, trying to change, like trying to find this unique style, a unique style. I still haven't found it yet, but I'm getting there. But now I'm trying to pull back a little bit more, try to let it mature a little bit, trying to be a bit more purposeful with my images, the subject, the framing, and the colors as well. So.
And you know what? I mean, when we think about it, when we go out with our camera, you either go home immediately and you edit them immediately and you post it up, and you haven't got an opportunity for it to season or to brown off in the oven, let it cook a bit further,
Amen. Absolutely.
And I do think as well that, I'm similar to that. I get bursts and I go off and I may not post an image or a video for what I've done. It could have been a month ago. So I've had a month to look at that image and look at it again. And there's a lot to be said for do an edit, get up, walk away, come back to it the next day and see if you still like it or not. Because you become nose blind or color blind, let's just say, to what's been done. And all of a sudden you go, geez, what was I thinking? Whereas if you cut that immediately, and I know a number of people, and there's nothing wrong with it if they want to do it that way, but they'll be out shooting sunrise and the image is edited and posted up online by 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I know a few people like that.
Yeah, and I think you're better off, let it sit, do your edit, step away, doing a completely different thing, and then come back to it again, and then see it. So your approach, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing to kind of sit in them for a while, because it gives it the opportunity to finesse, to fine tune, and then say, yeah, you know what, happy with that. And then you can get the burst of that style, because you're then in that frame of mind, as opposed to, I like this color palette today, I like the other color palette the next day, and all of a sudden you're getting a mismatch and stuff. And from the platform that you're sharing and the likes of Instagram, I think that's very, very important as well, because then you create your grid, which is recognizable. And that some of the greats like Peter McKinnon says, okay, change your grid for autumn colors, change your grid for summer colors, change your grid and you get that seasonality, and it appears in relation to your grid if you get the opportunity to have that frame in mind and do the editing at the same time. So that's just my addition to that.
Amen. You couldn't have said it better, and just to add on to that as well, sometimes when you go back to look at an image that you've taken, you kind of see it through different eyes. Like, I go back through an image now that I've taken 2 years ago, and I myself as a photographer, I'm a different, I'm seeing things a little bit differently. I'm seeing something different in that image now. And maybe I saw it there and then when I was snapping the image, I don't know, but for whatever reason, I didn't edit that or publish that or post it or whatever, and when you go back, sometimes you just get caught and you're like, Jesus, that fits right now.
Yeah.
So a lot to be said for it.
Absolutely. And we've kind of alluded to it there. I mean, with Instagram, how do you find Instagram as a platform now for sharing your images? Do you think that it's a good platform? Do you find that it has its strengths, weaknesses? A lot of people are saying, okay, it used to be a great platform for images, now it's moving towards video. What's your thoughts on Instagram? Because you are heavily featuring, let's just say, on the Friday features on the Instagram page, but in general, how do you find Instagram as a platform?
So I think that it's dying, unfortunately, and I'm not giving up on it.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
basically, yeah. So I'm just it's kind of like rinse and repeat with me at the moment. Like that's where I started, trying to put my work out there to get feedback, to get criticism, and for that, it's still really good. You can still get a bit of, you can get good feedback from people, you can get positivity, get negativity, whatever you're looking for. However, if you're trying to grow on it as a platform, I think that time is done. I think
Hmm.
that's over. I'm waiting for someone to be like, "Hey, this is the new Instagram, everybody. This is what you have now to use." So I've looked at Twitter. I've kind of started posting there separately as well as Instagram. But yeah, at the moment, I'm kind of just sticking put to what I know best. It's hard though. Like at the moment, I see everybody pushing videos and reels and stuff like that. I feel like I'd be like, I've done a couple of reels, but they just don't do it for me. I could
Hmm.
spend ages doing a video, whereas I just sometimes like the simplicity of editing a photo,
Hmm.
spending a bit of time on that and then being done with it. But like, you could spend 2 and 3 days on a reel if you really put your time and dedication
Yeah,
into it. Like,
yeah.
and I don't really want to necessarily like fit into that box. This is what we're being told to do, this is the
Hmm.
content that we have to push, it's not me. And yeah, no, so I struggle with that a little bit, and I see everybody doing it. And like, I have a drone, so I've got a bank, like I'm talking a full bank of like 5 years of drone video from all over the country that I could take and whip into something meaningful or whatever. But it does take a little bit of inspiration at times. I've done it before where I'm like, what, now is the time, I'll go at something now and I'm feeling a bit inspired. But
Hmm.
overall, Instagram is just kind of, I just feel like it's on its last legs. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe they might listen and put it back to the way it is, but it's a business now, and that's the reality.
Yeah, look, I kind of, I tend to agree with you in relation to most things are cyclical. They have a shelf life, and that they'll be very, very good for a while, and all of a sudden, you know, Bebo,
Yeah,
MySpace, or whatever it might be, and they're who,
Bebo.
like they're gone. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when you like Instagram, I think is such a large platform. I mean, it's owned by obviously Facebook and the Meta Group or whatever you want to call themselves these days. But I do think that they're trying to compete for a new generation that's coming through that wants the instant gratification. TikTok is an example. That's why the videos
yes.
are there. That's why they want to start doing the videos. I mean, I've said it a few times, I suppose, that, okay, we shouldn't complain about something that's free, but in reality, we should, in a way that if it's not going to be suiting what I have to do and I have to conform to whatever they want me to do to get my images seen and stuff like that. So I think the algorithm is something that nobody will ever understand. And if people spend all their time trying to figure that out, then by the time they finally do, it will change.
We
And
changed, yeah.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
nothing future proof about it, my friend. Nothing
yeah,
at all. Well said.
absolutely. And I think, the other thing that comes to mind, and you kind of alluded to there, where you're living. I mean, you're in a very, very good position. On your doorstep, you've got a lot of things that you can go shoot. You're not that far away in relation to it. Okay, you're far enough away from the best part in the country, which is the west of Ireland. But we'll let you off in relation to that. But I mean, like Dublin features quite a lot on your images, and Dublin city centre features quite a lot in your images as well. Is there a method to that, or is it something that inspires you to want to do that? Did you see something specific and go, you know what, I want to focus on that? Where does that idea come from? From the genre of the images, let's just say, or the locations in there?
Well, I suppose that, yeah, location based. I have a lot on my doorstep. I said I'm at the foot of the Ticknock Mountains. I'm 10-minute drive from Dunleary, so sunrises galore. Then I've got all at Dalkey, 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
20 minutes, I'm at the Poolbeg Towers, and then an hour either side, I can be kind of down at Wicklow Head or up in the Wicklow Mountains, or I could be up at Rush.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I suppose it's, as I said, this whole photography journey for me has been a learning curve. I'm just out there practicing, and that's what I'm doing. And it just depends on, I suppose, the conditions and if I'm going out with a friend or not. And Dublin City has got a lot to offer, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of amazing photographers here in Dublin. And with that, there's a lot of competitiveness as well. We're kind of out there as well, just trying to show
Sure.
the same location just in a different way, which I love that challenge.
Hmm.
So with that in mind, it's all on my doorstep, and I go to the same locations and have done for the past 5 years. Just different times, different weather
Hmm.
conditions, and just try to rinse and repeat, because it's constant learning, constant practice. And I suppose through the, like, as my cameras evolved as well, each time I've gone and been like, oh, right, I'm going to go back to that spot now and see how this differs. Do you know, when I'm taking it with this camera and this lens to see this exact same shot, you know, particularly with the drones, and when I went from Canon to Sony, huge difference. But I wanted to see and understand that in my images, and like, yeah, so that's basically it for me. It's just where can I go? Where's the weather going to be nice? And
Mm-hmm.
but if I could pick any of those spots, if I'm honest with you, Dunleary. Dunleary is a spot for me. It's got so much to offer.
Mm-hmm.
The harbour down there, especially if you want a mixture, you know, you've got everything from, there's 2 lighthouses. You know, you can send the drone up in the air. It's just fantastic. Like, especially for sunrise, it's a class spot.
Would you believe I've never gone photographing in Dunleary? I mean, I lived in Dublin for 7 years back in a previous life, let's just say, but I was before I ever had the graw for the camera. The only thing I did in Dunleary was scuba dive, and that was the worst experience ever because all I could see was probably 1 foot in front of me from the visibility was so bad. But I think, you know, it's interesting you say Dunleary, because I would have actually thought that the Samuel Beckett Bridge and the convention centre and stuff like that would be a kind of an area that you go, you know what, every time I go back there, I'm going to have different lights, I'm going to have different colours, I'm going to have different conditions in the water. And there's some beautiful shots, as you said, quite rightly, some really, really talented photographers around Dublin, but in Dublin city centre as well, there's a plethora of items that you can photograph on a regular
there
basis,
is.
you know.
There really is, like, you know, especially around the Samuel Beckett Bridge there, the CCD and stuff like that, you know, there's loads, there really is. And you're around the kind of Dublin Bay area is lovely, you know, where the port is, and even down towards the Poolbeg Towers. It's, and especially now that we're kind of, well, I've got myself a bigger lens as well, there's more reach from wherever I am. So you'd be surprised at things you can get. Like, you know, I'm able to hit the Poolbeg Towers up in Ticknock Mountains at the minute, crystal sharp, like, and it doesn't make for a great image, but just I can, you know, that kind of way.
Absolutely. And I suppose, look, the advantage there too with the Liffey is that, you know, you can take a photograph due east, due west, you'll get your sunrise bang on, it's lit up perfectly, whatever the time of day it is, you can go either side and get those images. So once, actually, myself and Dermot, we were up for the launch of the OSR, actually, and we got up early, and I said, come on, we'll go take photos there of the convention centre and Samuel Beckett Bridge. Like, conditions were just pretty standard, and there was nothing major about it. But we said, you know what, we're here, we're in Rome, as you say.
Absolutely.
We took out the camera. And speaking of Samuel Beckett Bridge, there's something I want to talk to you about, actually, and you've alluded to it a moment ago, is about the drone, because I think the drone is a completely different ballgame when it comes to photography. I mean, you get you've got the tallest tripod, the most maneuverable tripod that you could ever possibly imagine. And you mentioned about doing reels. You did a reel, I believe, there where you featured Samuel Beckett Bridge as one of the images within that. And to me, I was looking at that going, that could be an advertisement for Dublin. I mean, it's just it's class the way that you had done the whole thing together. So tell me a bit more about the drone and how the drone has kind of elevated, pardon the pun, because, you know, elevated. How has it elevated your photography? Boom, boom.
Yeah, the drone is excellent. It's been the best addition. Like, I did like image photography before, and then when drones came out, a friend of mine, Kieran, got one. He got a Mavic Pro, and he started showing me some of the images. I was like, bloody hell, these are just phenomenal. Like, instantly, like, you have, and this is back 5-6 years ago when it wasn't so common, but you had images that people didn't have. You had perspectives that people didn't have. You were showing something new every single time. So it was a game changer for me, absolute game changer. I started off with the Mavic Air 2, or the Mavic Air 1, 12 megapixel, and like, I didn't even know what I was doing with it, you know, but I was still getting images that I was happy with and I was progressing with, you know. A couple of years later, then I moved on to the Mavic 2 Pro. That's the one that I still use today, and that's the one that I did those reels on. Much better sensor. Like, the only thing about the drone stuff, the photos in particular, they are to edit. They're very, very difficult to edit.
Yes,
you probably know that yourself. You can't push as far, and you really have to nail it in shot to get it right if you want to try to have any type of hope to try to put any kind of edit on it, in my opinion. But again, like that though, for a while then I was doing a lot of photography around the city centre, a lot of hyperlapse stuff as well, and just trying to get in to see the different features that the drone had and learn it as I went. And I suppose some of that was then just doing video and trying to replicate different things. And like I've done a lot of video editing work throughout the years with different companies, whether it be like putting videos together for culture night and, editing videos for conferences. Like I know how to edit, and I also know what looks good. I have an eye for it. When I see something, like, that's what I want it to look like. So
yeah.
I would always kind of have a certain aesthetic that I would be trying to achieve or adhere to try when I'm editing. And then trying to show something just a little bit different, again, in my photography or in the video. There's really subtle things that I did in that particular video you're talking about. You'll notice at the very start, it's kind of pulling away, but it's also zooming in. But it has a foreground and the background, which looks like it's separating it. So you're instantly thinking, what am I looking at? It's that little things, I think, that make the difference. And I tried to do that in a couple of other videos, like the pool bag videos, where in Premiere, I was actually with the drone, I was rotating around the pool bag chimneys, and I didn't have it spot on. I had it nearly right, but then to compensate for it then as well, I just put a tracking onto it as well. So you're looking at it, it looks like it's spinning as it's not moving. You're like, what am I looking at here? It's those little things that I'm looking out for. And I think people like yourself, you pick up on them, they just look a little bit different. So if I can achieve that somehow, that's kind of what I'm after.
And you know what? I think the drone for me as well is something that it gives you a different perspective on something that you look at every day. And I think
Absolutely.
if you look at, from the Dublin point of view, I mean, look, population of Dublin is what, 2 million or something like that. So you've got 2 million people that would see these things on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden they see it from the sky and they go, oh, geez, I never thought of that. You know what I mean? And that's
that's it.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of that. And I suppose, one final question I suppose I have for you before we go for break is, we've mentioned in relation to, where you go take photographs. Do you consider your photography style? I know you say you're still, I don't know if you found one or not, but I think that you have. But would you consider your photography style to be urban, or would it be landscape? Or is it a mixture of both? Herbscape?
I think it's Herbscape, yeah. I think I
just made that up there.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's hard to know because I do like the landscapes, and it's hard because the edits I go for, sometimes they could have an urban look to them at times. They can be a lot more darker and more contrasty. I don't know. I don't know if I could put a name on it. Work in progress. That's what it is.
We'll get you back on in that 2 years, and we'll figure out have you actually nailed it? Have you got a name for it? You'll have a better name than Herbscape, I can guarantee you in relation to that. So listen, look, it's been a fascinating first half, I suppose, of the show. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break, okay? And I'll be right back because I want to get into editing in the second half of the show. So I'm looking forward now to talking more. So I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
After this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Dermot, like I alluded to there before the break, I'm really excited now to kind of get into the editing of your images. And like, when I see an image of yours, I instantly know that's one of your shots. And I mean, that's something that doesn't happen that often. And I see a lot of images, as you can probably imagine, from even the podcast on Instagram, but even from all the different things that I do. I live and breathe photography. So, like, for somebody that hasn't seen an image of yours, first and foremost, how would you describe your style of editing? Or not just say your style, how would you describe your editing?
Good question. My editing is unique, I think, purposeful, and like I was saying earlier on, a work in progress. So I'm constantly trying to kind of learn, evolve. At the moment, you'll see, if you look at my grid, you'll see it's a lot more contrasty and dark. I've been trying to embrace the black tones a lot more and try to be a bit more specific on the subjects that I kind of focus in on. I think before I was using kind of like more desaturated colors, more pastel-y types of colors. And I think it was on the, yourself and Bernard did an Insta spotlight on me, and it was one of Bernard's comments. He said, I don't think it worked in these photos, the kind of pastel-y type. And I was kind of listening to that, and I kind of took that on board. I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to go, and I'm just learning as I go, really, But the editing style, though, when I get into it, I suppose I always like to use teal and orange as the base. I
Yeah.
shoot standard. Like, I try to nail the shot in camera, but then when it comes to editing, then I'm taking it down a different road and trying to give a different look to something that you've seen a lot before. And then I play around a lot with like light filters, radial filters, to try to isolate a subject, to try to draw your eye into something. And yeah, that's really it. Like, it's, yeah. And then tidying images up, I'm a devil for that. Like, so I bring it into Photoshop and just little things, little specks here and there. I'm constantly cleaning up, or signpost removing.
As being a Sony user, you have a lot of dust spots, I imagine, anyway. But sure, we won't get into that
one. Yes. You're right on that
one. I'm well versed in the pains of Sony ownership. Yeah, even though I'm a Canon shooter, but anyway, Canon for life. But you've mentioned there about teal and orange, and that's something I think which is really interesting for me, because they're not the colors that you would necessarily see in your mind's eye when you're taking the image, but you might see it in your mind's eye when you're taking the image. Okay, this is what I want to have. So where did that come from? Where did you go, do you know what, Jesus, I like the teal and orange here, actually. It's a very good thing. Did it just kind of naturally progress over that in that direction, or was it something purposeful and you went, there's one particular image here, let me just try this. Oh, hang on a second, that works. And now all of a sudden you get to the next image and you go, I'll try that again. Oh, it works as well. Where did that evolve from?
So it kind of came from when I started taking photos. When I first started taking photos, I was going out for sunrises in Dunleary, right? Okay. And you'd end up with the orange sky and the kind of green sea. And that's where it kind of really started from. Then I tried to kind of give myself a challenge where I'd say, okay, well, I need to try to find elements and objects that have these types of color tones. So it could be the green grass, which I can manipulate into orange, the blue skies, which I can bring down to teal. And I was purposely trying to find myself these different types of photos. So I was going out with this in my head. Made a lot of awful photos. I made a lot of terrible photos. Like, I've deleted a load from my Instagram, and if you go back, there's some shameful moments, honestly.
We all have them.
But it's part and parcel of learning, though, isn't it? Like, if you think about it, like when you look at my work, I always say it is a work in progress. If you go through it, you'll see the natural progression of kind of where I'm trying to get to, and hopefully I will get there. But so that's kind of it. It was kind of the idea. And plus as well, I remember when I first started taking photos, I don't remember the names, but I remember a lot of Instagram accounts I would look at and I would see these beautiful teal and orange. It's a beautiful cinematic color combination. And when it's done properly, like, and not like I butchered it at the very start, but when it's done properly, like, it is breathtaking to see. And it'd be so smooth and so elegant at the same time. It's really, really good. So at the moment, though, you'll see I'm kind of embracing the blues and the blacks a bit more. I'm really trying to go down as far as like kind of like the teal into blues, orange into yellows, and just try to push it out a little bit more through editing to see where I go with it. But I'm kind of concentrating on trying to get that rich, contrasty look to my shots at the minute, and it's more so coming through. Like, I shoot purposely for that. I'd shoot like maybe 2 stops under, 1 stop under at times, and I also take a variety of shots as well, different f-stops, and
to have it to play around with later.
I think that's the best way to do it, to be honest, Aaron. Like, when you come back to your computer screen, you want to have options. That's the best way, because I go through them, and again, like I said about sitting on the images, what I see in one shot, and there might be a slight variation here, a slight variation there, that might jump out at me at different points for a different reason, and I might say, oh, what, there's a bit of beauty in that shot there that I missed. So
and I think, what, you're better off to have it rather than be looking for it, I mean, and that's the biggest thing, like, you're in that scene, you have that light, you have that situation in front of you. Take as many shots as you possibly ever think you need, because you're better off to throw them in the bin than rather than suddenly going, hang on a second, I wish I just had that one. So, dead right. And I think, like, you've kind of alluded to it a moment ago in relation to the tools that you'd use from an editing point of view. So is it Lightroom, is it Photoshop, or do you use additional programs or software as well for your editing?
So for photos, I use Lightroom. I start off my whole editing process in Lightroom. normally get the photo to as close to natural as possible. I
Okay.
bring up the highlights and stuff like that. I always shoot in auto, because an auto white balance. Sorry, not auto, but auto white balance, and I can fix that then later on, depending on what I'm going for with the edit.
Yeah.
Then once I'm kind of happy enough with where the edit is gone, I get it to a certain point, bring it into Photoshop then and do all my cleaning, tidying, and maybe add in like light rays or some mist or something like that. I might do it for an filter as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and then back into Lightroom then, and then maybe just fine tune it one more time. Yeah, and then when it comes to the video stuff, do a lot of Premiere Pro, After Effects. They'd be the main ones that I mess around with. So.
And how long would you spend on average for an image? I know it's a difficult one to say. It depends on the image, but like, are you kind of, bang, 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 done, let it sit, bang, 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 or you say, you know what, I'm going to spend my time in this, get into the zone, get into this image?
Yeah. I'm more like the end, like you said, get into the image. So I'll have a look and see what I have, and I'll pick out. Say if I go on a shoot tomorrow, now I'd say I get 5 images that I really like. And I say I'll pick them aside and add them or star them. I'll come back to them, and I'll probably spend a morning on those 5 images, and I might only come
Mm-hmm.
out with one. But I'll go through everything that I had from that morning. I'll go through it all, and when I find the right one, I could be an hour at it. It just depends on the edit and how much
Mm-hmm.
time it takes, and if it needs a lot of cleaning or touching up, or But then there's been other times as well where the image is just ready.
Yeah.
When you just nail the shot in
Yeah.
camera, and you're like, I don't even need to do this much.
Yeah.
And there's been times, and I just put on, like, I have a couple of presets that I would have made myself over the years, just to push my colors. Like, and I just go through and I start off and I just hit it. I'm like, whoa, just leave that go straight away, let it go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's been times like that when you'll be able to see dust specks, as you mentioned. You'll be able to see dust specks in them if you go onto my Instagram. You look closely. I'm like, for feck's sake, I should have just taken my time, or I'd look back, and this is more before, like, I'd see the horizon be off slightly, and I'm like, oh, for feck's sake, there, what did you do?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I actually suffer from that as well quite a lot, because from a seascape point of view, which is where I normally find myself, I take
Lovely.
shed load of shots, and then I can go editing and I go, okay, I like this wave, and I'll concentrate in the wave, and I go, okay, that's finished. And then I'll come back to it and go, look at that, you haven't got the horizon straight. I straightened all the other ones, but I hadn't straightened that one. So yeah, absolutely, it can happen. But
Yeah,
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 I think it's interesting, like that, when you say there, that the flow or the process that you would use, because you've got Lightroom will do certain things for you, you've got
yeah.
Photoshop that will do other things for you, and then you bring it back in to polish it in Lightroom before it's finished. So you're actually getting 3 individual goes at the same image in 3 different ways, in 3 different workflows, and then ultimately you end up with your banger shots. Like I said, I'm running out of certified bangers built underneath your images. So it
Cheers,
definitely
man.
works. And I think it's interesting, because some people can spend 2 hours on one image, some people can spend 5 minutes on an image, but it all depends on what you want to try and achieve from that
Yeah,
image. And
yeah,
you've kind of mentioned it there, which is the next question I wanted to ask you, is that when you're going out to take your shot, are you shooting for the edit? Or is it a case that when you get back, you go, hang on a second, I'm going to try this edit on this image here? What one is it for you predominantly? I mean, we'll all have different scenarios when you take a shot, but tomorrow morning, if you're going to go out and you're going to go out with the camera, are you now thinking of what you want to edit before you even take the shot? Yeah.
yeah. I'm thinking about locations and what will work. So I'm thinking about, like, the contrast and where I'm going to find my dark angles for. That's why I find it difficult at the minute in summer, because it's unless you're up really really early, you're going to find it very hard to find long shadows. So
Mm-hmm.
best bet is to go up to the woods up in Ticknock and try to use the trees for framing and stuff like that. So that's going to be my challenge. When I'm shooting, I'm either going for a subject, but when I'm shooting, I'm normally shooting to nail the focus, the exposure, and then get varieties around that. So I'll drop the f-stop down, or sorry, I'll drop the white balance down. Sorry, not the white balance. I'll bring the brightness down. I'll try
Mm-hmm.
a bit bigger focal length if I need a bit more reach, if the focus isn't completely right. Then I do a lot of bracketing shots as well. So take a
You
couple
have
of
those. Yeah.
exposures if I want to get it really, really sharp. And then what I end up getting is, what I'm hoping to have is a perfectly exposed photo of that scene. So, for instance, if I went out to, like, the last time I went to Phoenix Park, I was focusing in. So the scene is basically, I'm behind the trees, the deer are in the trees, and the sun is rising behind them. So the deer are all kind of backlit. So I'm letting that be the exposure and letting the deers be the kind of dark shadows. And it just worked out so perfectly. And when I nailed it, especially when I did 1 and 2 stops underneath, and it's just a click of just press auto nearly, and the shot just perfect, you know.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah.
It comes out, and then if I add a little bit more contrast or whatever, and then there's a lot of cleaning up in those images. The amount of time I spend removing just leaves and shite, like
Yeah, of course. But you know what?
yeah,
You've kind of hit on something there, I think, which is, Phoenix Park is a great location for photos because you can get so
class.
many deers that are there, and you get the sun rising behind that as well. And it's unbelievable, some of the images that I
Yeah,
see, and your shots as well. I mean, you can see the hairs with the sunlight coming in behind them on their ears, and you're kind of going, yeah, nail that. It's unreal. It's almost as if they have a bit of personality and they kind of go, yeah, I'm over here. Hang on a second.
yeah,
It's a light,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
take my shot. Like, so
yeah.
definitely get that. And I mean, summertime, as you mentioned, is not your preferred time because sunrise is too early, sunset is too late. And, you don't have, as you said, crisp conditions. I mean, haze is a killer in the summertime. Whereas you don't get much of that in the winter, but you do get nice fog and stuff like that. So that adds a proper haze that you can work with. So do you prefer dawn? Do you prefer dusk? Do you prefer astro? In an ideal world, obviously not the summertime, but like, what's your
Yeah.
preferred time to shoot?
For me, my favorite time to shoot is blue hour into sunrise. So getting that the hour before the sun comes up, where you kind of you don't. It's kind of very unexpected of what can happen. The sun could light up a little bit beforehand. The sky
Yeah.
could light up the clouds underneath, and then you've also got the chance, depending on your location, if you're kind of a little bit outside Dublin, good chance of getting some stars in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then into sunrise, then like my sunrise shots. So that's the kind of favorite time. Again, I could do it into sunset, but sunrise always, I'd rather get up early. I like the idea of getting up early before the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously during the winter it's a bit more like rugged and you're kind of looking out for those proper mornings, but
Mm-hmm.
when you get the right conditions or you have the sun lining up perfectly over like the Poolbeg Tower, it's class. Like,
Yeah, and the beauty of sunrise as well is that there's generally nobody else around to annoy you. I mean, when you get for sunset, it can be, depending on the location you're in, there could be loads of people around there, and
yeah,
I found that over the years, like for sunset, is that you're there and you rock up with your camera and someone goes, "Oh, photographer, what are they taking a photograph of?" And they come over and they stand right in front of you. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
You're gonna, all
People are
right.
very inquisitive. The amount of mornings I've been sitting around with the drone, and I'll just be sitting there and trying to keep an eye on the drone and an eye on the screen. And some fella just sit down beside me, like, "What you doing?" I'm
Yeah,
like, "I'm just flying the drone. Can I see?" I'm like, "Yeah, come on then." And then they're
yeah,
asking
yeah.
you questions, and then like I get thrown off, like, because I'm trying to concentrate on the drone, keep an eye on it, and I'm learning as I'm going. The leg is shaking because I'm nervous. I just get back 3% battery. Come on, get back.
Yeah, and they start asking you the most craziest questions about it as
Yeah,
well. Like, yeah. And tell me, when we think about the drone, right? There's a couple of images you mentioned it again a second ago, and also in locations, you've got the Poolbeg chimneys, and
yeah,
that is a phenomenal subject, or they, should I say, are a phenomenal subject to shoot. Like, I've seen a number of different shots, but your shots seem to stand out because again, you've got the edit, you got the style in relation to that's been developed. But like, two questions that I have for you. Have you shot it from all different angles yet, or is there still loads more that you need to find? And also, is there talk of them knocking them? So they're going to be gone at some stage too.
probably haven't shot them from every angle yet.
Okay.
I like to think of Poolbeg as like the testing ground, right? So it's amazing for photos. So you're looking out behind you. You've got the Poolbeg chimneys. You're looking out in front. You've got the Poolbeg lighthouse. Now that I bought a Sony 200 to 600. I can hit Bailey Lighthouse. I can hit East Pier and Dunleary.
Very good.
There's loads to get there, and I suppose that's been the kind of staple as far as progression with the cameras has gone. It's like I took this shot with the Canon 80D and like a 16 to 35, like
Hmm.
whatever, how long ago. Then I went with the Sony and I went to the same place, and then I got the 70 to 180, and then I did the same thing. Then I got the 200, 600, so I'm back again.
Hmm.
So it does seem like we're down there quite a bit, but there's a lot. There's a lot of photography
Nice.
options down there, and plus then you've got the drone as well. So it's lovely. But they have been talking about knocking them down. I have heard a lot of rumors about it. I remember there was a big talk about it like 2 or 3 years ago, and there was two of the
Yeah.
photographers from up here. I think it was Muno Explorer and Raw Dublin. They were setting up some page where they were saying don't knock them down. If anything, they should just be kind of put there, made permanent. If they're, I think the reality is they're structurally unsafe or something like that, and that's the
Okay.
worry.
Okay.
But if they were to just keep them there in place, I think they're iconic for
They are
Dublin.
iconic. They are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think they are. Like, and it'd be a shame to see them go. I'd be very unhappy.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, you mentioned there about being able to see them from many different areas. Is when I lived in Dublin, I used to go up to Cliney Hill, and you can see them from Cliney Hill, and you're looking down, and there's a
Yeah,
little cliff edge. I used to sit on there and look into Dublin city centre, and bang, you're seeing the towers. You know, and I mean, they are
yeah,
iconic. And anybody that's living in Dublin or flying into Dublin, you know, you'll see them as well as you're flying in. If you're coming in from the UK or whatever, you know, on the left hand side, bang, there they are. You can
yeah,
see them all in plain sight. So I think they're iconic. And I must say, you know, I'm quite impressed with the amount of photos that I see of the towers or the
yeah,
chimneys. But every single one of them is different. They're the same subject, but they're different because they've got a different foreground and a different spot. And then, you know, I was joking, you're saying if you shot them from one angle, because you never will. Because I mean, look, you know, in reality, you probably have around about a 320 degrees of where you can actually go, but you get a drone, you've 360 degrees, so you
yeah,
can do it from any different area there whatsoever. And you know, you've mentioned in relation to Poolbeg Lighthouse. I mean, that's something again that is beautiful to take photographs of. You know,
cracking.
you've got you get a mad sea there. You've got that, you know, walkway or the wall, whatever it may be. You
Yeah,
get crashing waves over that, and there's so much to offer in Dublin Bay alone. It's
yeah.
just crazy, you know. And lighthouses is something that I think everybody loves to take photographs of, and everybody likes to see photographs of lighthouses as
Love them.
well.
Love
You know, yeah,
great. Like,
yeah. And actually, speaking of lighthouses, I mean, you've been down to the Mighty Hook, and I
oh, I
think
have made.
that's a phenomenal lighthouse. I think I've never, you know, I love the sea, as you know, most people would know, but I mean, I've never seen conditions as rough around an area as you'll get around Hook. It's so dynamic. The shape of the rocks there are incredible. But
Yeah,
plus as well, it's on the edge of Ireland, so now you can do your astro and stuff like that as well. So, like, tell me, how did you find that experience down there? And have you been down there that often?
yeah. So I've been down there twice, and the last time I went down, it was a late night job during the winter. I got up about 2:30,
Okay,
coffee in straight in the van and drove down. I got down there about 4:30. Sunrise was about 6. So I had 2 hours. I had a good solid hour of astrophotography,
very good.
and you know, it was fantastic because I got down there like it was mad. I was driving down and I hit a patch of fog on the road, and I was like, oh, a bit nervous, and it kind of added to the excitement and the morning that was in it. And I got down
Hmm.
there, and there was no one down there. I mean, not a sinner, no caravan. Sometimes they have mobiles and
Yeah,
caravans
yeah,
that
yeah.
are down there, and there was no one down there. So all you had was the kind of rotating light, and then crazy wild
Sweet.
conditions. So I
Yeah.
was like, this is it, right? Let's go to work. So I got down there about 4:30, I think, and I went straight up around the back, pointing backwards, trying to get some astro shots, which was class. So I had the water, the rocks, the water in the foreground, kind of long exposure, so that was all kind of blurred in, lovely. I had the lighthouse going around, which I was trying to catch it so that I could get the lighthouse flare to come out as well, which
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
difficult, and then trying to
Hmm.
capture the astro as well. So I was doing different shots, different exposures when the light would stop and stuff, and yeah, then the sunrise came up and it was just incredible. Like, so I was
Yeah.
back around the other side then it was get the drone out, and yeah, it was a
Liberty.
great morning. Like,
Yeah.
I remember that morning coming back and stopping off in a coffee shop, and I was just smiling,
Yeah.
cheek to
Buzzing
ear
on the
to
way
ear.
back
Like,
up.
it was
Yeah. Yeah.
just, I was like, I knew what was inside that camera, inside that drone, inside that memory card. Like, I was like, I've nailed this. Like, and
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
the shots I have, they still, like, that was 2 years ago, I think the last one I went down. And when I see those shots still, I still just get brought back to that feeling. Like, just those conditions down there as well. Actually, a funny one. When I went around the back, I was looking off in the distance. I thought I could see somebody, and it was really dark. And I was like, I definitely can see somebody. And I was like, he's not moving. And I got a bit freaked out, to be honest with you. I was sitting there taking the photos of my back, kind of looking over my shoulder, being like, is that someone there? So eventually, when the sun started coming up, then I realized it was a signpost. I was like, all right, calm down. Oh God, yeah,
Once you didn't
yeah,
start talking to the signpost, he never answered you, then you'd be in
yeah,
a different
yeah,
world altogether, you know. And you know, you mentioned something on there, I think, and it's something that I love about photography, particularly from a seascape photography point of view, is the waves, right, and the motion with the water and everything
yeah.
else as well. And like, have you done much in relation to from a seascape point of view, capturing the movement in the water, not necessarily in Hook, but the conditions in Hook are incredible. But like, is there a draw to you for seascapes?
Yeah, there is indeed. Again, with the sunrise and stuff like that, I was kind of started off, and there was a couple of mornings when the waves are coming in a high tide in Dunleary, and it was crashing off the rocks, and I just had these shots where I had the sun placed in the middle, and there was water coming up either side, and that idea of capturing that motion, that movement, just dead perfect. I was like, and I remember nailing one shot. I was like, this is deadly. I don't know. I've heard it before, but when you're doing the seascapes, like, no shot's ever going to be the same.
Never.
You could take it 100 times, and it's not going to be the same. So there's that sense of kind of uniqueness about it as well.
Yeah.
I did one of Bernard's workshops there in Dingle about 2 years ago, and he brought me down to a couple of wild places, like, and there was one, I can't remember where it was, but we were down right on the edge, and we were trying to do seascape shots, and he's like, wait for the water to come in, and he's great. Like, I learned so much from his workshop. And I did one with him, and I did another one with Ian Carruthers and Anthony Lynch for Astro. I did there twice, like, so they've been the two kind of passions. But with Bernard's one, so we're on the edge there, and I'm waiting for the water to kind of come in and come out, so I can get it to lead me, the line exposure to lead me into the photo. He's like, Bernard's actually, just be careful of that water. And we've been the whole day shooting, and I was like, I'm grand, I've got this. Like, I took my eye off the prize for 1 second, Darren, 1 second, and next minute a wave just hit me. And I mean, like, inside my jacket, in my jumper, the camera was soaking, absolutely got leathered out of it.
Well, I can tell you that was probably Coomanall Beach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, hang on. We did
Claher, one of the two.
Yeah, because we were looking down on that beach. We did a shot from a rock looking down onto that beach with the mountains in the background, which I have. I love that shot, actually. And then the other one, we kind of to walk over, and it has a nice pointy rock. I don't know what it's called.
That's called the Devil's Horns. That's Coomanall Strand, actually. Yeah.
Right, that's the one then.
Over by Dunmore Head.
Yes, that place put manners on me. So yeah.
Well, do you know what? That place puts manners on many people, and the water conditions there are phenomenal. I was down there actually one time with Bernard when he was living down in Dingle for a while, and it was a rough sea, and we were down for storm conditions, and he was like, I'm going to go around the other side of the rock, and I'm like, all right, Bernard, take it easy, like, take
He's
it
a mentler.
He's like, I'll be grand, so he went anyway when the wave went out, and he got around the rock, and I stayed put. And then all of a sudden I see him coming back, and I see this big wave coming in, like, Bernard, run! So Bernard runs anyway, and I'm not joking you with this wave. I mean, Bernard ran to the very, very back of the beach, up against the rocks, and the water came up to his chest.
Jesus.
And it was that a big a wave. I mean, that beach can catch everybody out. Particularly catches people out that seem to think they can drive their car down there, but I don't know. I mean,
yeah. Bernard's a lunatic himself. He was out there jumping around rocks, and I was like, where's he gone now? Like, he's
a mountain goat.
Some man.
He's a mountain goat. Yeah, absolutely. But seascape is great for exactly as you say. Every single image is unique. The only problem with seascape is that you end up taking thousands of photographs, and it's a balls having to edit them when you get back. That's the problem that I have with it.
The file size as well, like on the Sony as well, like, you're going through like maybe 300 or 400 high shutter rate, like, and you're bang at the time, and you might have the one that looks decent, but bloody hell, it's a nightmare to go through.
Absolutely. And I suppose, we've kind of mentioned about going to different areas outside of Dublin. I mean, have you got areas locally that you kind of still want to go to, or have you got international areas that you want to go to? Have you got goals or a hit list?
Yeah, so Cork is on my list at the moment. I want to go down there. Kinsale, there's a few places down there, and down around it. There's a rugged coastline down there. I'd love to just send the drone out and see what I can get.
Very good.
And then Donegal as well. I'd like to go back up. I've been up there towards Murderhole Beach, but never got onto it. Never had the right conditions. I've been up there twice, so it's a bit around there for me. Internationally, I'm going to do a bit of Australia with my partner, so that'll be good fun. Do a bit of Sydney and Melbourne and stuff like that. Again, a lot of seascape stuff over there and drone stuff. But yeah, at the moment though, I'm looking forward to the challenge really of right now. Like I was saying earlier on, that I find it difficult to shoot in the summer. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, and the challenge is there to try to find shots in summertime where I can get the light, the contrast. So I'm kind of feeling a little bit motivated at the minute to try to get out and see what I can get.
do you know what? I think you're right to kind of push yourself to get out of your comfort zone in the areas, because that's when you'll probably find new skills that you didn't realize that you had, and that you can pull images out of the non-optimum conditions. I mean, I've always said it before. I mean, bad conditions do not exist in landscape photography. There's always a shot. Granted, it
Yeah,
may not be a
absolutely.
banger of a shot, but there's always a shot to be able to get. And it's about turning, what's the phrase, that sow's ear into a silk purse, to be able
Yeah, yeah,
and you can do that in the edit. But I would say, yeah, definitely get out. Yeah, it's a balls to get up in the middle of the night to get up for sunrise, or it's a balls to come home in the morning after being out for the night before for shooting. But without a belly full of drink is what you'd normally come home after being out
yeah.
filming when the sun is setting. But you could have a SIM card or an SD card that's full of images, so at least that's one way to be able to look at it from that.
Absolutely.
And I suppose, look, I've two final questions for you. And I suppose one is, you kind of alluded to the very beginning, you've used your camera from a work point of view, as being able to create images and create video and stuff like that. Have you ever thought about yourself kind of going, would I ever go pro here? Like, could this be my full-time job? Like, is that an aspiration that you might have at some stage?
At the moment, I'm kind of in the middle of just doing the web development and the photography. So I'm kind of doing the digital stuff 3 days a week, and I'm still doing my own stuff 2 days a week.
Yeah.
It's very competitive out there at the moment.
Yeah.
And for me at the moment, there's more money in web, and I'd rather keep photography as the passion.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of angled it a bit more that way at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
Never say never, though,
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's nice to have the separation between going out and shooting landscapes and going out and having that experience. You might get one image, you might get nothing, whatever it might be, who you're with. There's that element to it that it's really valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that balance as well. So at the moment, never say never, but I'm kind of happy to have the 50-50 split at the minute.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you're dead right to have it that way too, because if it turns into your living, then it has more pressure. Whereas you go
Yes.
to enjoy it, you're actually enjoying it for what it is, not to say, okay, I can't take this image because this is not going to sell. Take
Yeah.
this image for what you want to do, and that's where your passion would have come from the biggest part of it. Okay, last question. It's a question that I've introduced a number of episodes ago, and I want to ask every single person the same question. And I'm interested, actually, now to kind of hear your answer in relation to the following question: is it the photographer that creates the image, or is it the scene that presents itself?
I think it's the photographer that creates the image.
Okay.
I think that lately, with the amount of planning, weather stuff that goes into it, there's so much kind of thought process behind. Like, well, for me anyway, I'm trying to think, okay, well, what do I want the end product to look like? What's the style going to be? Okay, well, I need the sun to be here, the moon to be there. The planning goes in. I'm in photo pills trying to align up this or align up that. You're looking for the right weather conditions, whether it be foggy, misty, perfectly crispy, cold, that type. So for me, it's hard to say now because I'm kind of
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question, because sometimes when you're there and like I was saying earlier on, you go back on images and you might think, oh, there was much there, but then you go back on it with, like, let's just say an older head, and you see something in, you're like, bloody hell, there's something in that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
it is hard to know. I think at the start, the intention is always to go out and get the end result. So that in mind, I think it's the photographer.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer. Okay. You handled that tough one quite well, I have to say. No, fair play to you.
Oh, cheers, yeah.
So look, what I'm going to do, Dermot, is I'm going to take one final break, and I come back. I've got 3 staple questions, quick fire questions that I throw at every single guest, and I'm looking forward now as well to hearing your answers. So we'll be right back for the final part after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the final part of the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Dermot, like I said, I've got 3 questions, which you'll be more than familiar with, and you've listened to a number of different podcasts. So I'm delighted now to have you on to ask you exactly the same 3 questions. So, first question: what is a funny photography story?
Okay, so it's a bit rude, this one, but
You're the best.
yeah. So I was down in Vico, the swimming place. This is a
Psycho
good few
Bats,
years
yeah.
ago. Yeah, Vico Bats, when I was first learning how to take photos, and I had the drone with me, and I went there before sunrise. It was quite early. There was no one down there, so I took the drone out, and I was flying around the place and taking shots and kind of looking over towards Docky Island and stuff, and I in my element. One by one, I could see people were around me, kind of coming down to go swimming, and I was like, oh, right, whatever. Didn't think anything of it. Like, and anyway, I'm going to land the drone, and I'm kind of stepping back to try to get a little space there where there's no one around me. And sure, Vico Place is a nudist beach, and there's about 10 lads all around there, all naked. And then I'm the one with the camera out, so I'm the weirdo. It was mortifying. So I'm there trying to get out of the way, be like, sorry, trying to land this drone, which, by the way, as well, was beeping. When the drone's going, they've only got like 3, and it's like dee, and it's the most it's intrusive, that noise. And there's about 10 of them around me, all looking up at this drone, all bollock naked. And I'm like, for fuck's sake. And again, like, I'm the weirdo because I have the camera out, like. So I don't drone down there anymore.
I think for obvious reasons, yeah. But it's interesting you saying I'm the weirdo because I'm the camera out instead of the guys that are absolutely ball stark naked there in the middle of this, like, yeah.
Not a bother on them pointing into the sky at this Mavic Air running around the place. Bloody hell.
Okay, and the next question is gear. So everybody suffers from a bit of gas over a period of time. Some people suffer from more than others, but you've alluded to it a couple of times anyway with the type of camera that you shoot with. But tell me, what camera gear do you carry in your bag?
So at the moment, I'm shooting with the Sony A7R3. I have the Sony 16-35 f2.8. I have the Tamron 70-180 2.8, and then I have the 200-600, and it's the 5.6 to 6 point something. I don't know what it is. Nice. And then I have the Mavic Pro 2. And then I suppose what else? Tripod. I have a 3-legged thing tripod.
Very good.
Which is I'm going to have to get a new tripod if I'm honest. With that big 200 to 600, it's not exactly the most sturdy.
Yeah. Okay.
So so I've got to get a new tripod. But that's my gear. And then what else? I have the Polar Pro ND filters for the drone. They make a huge difference, to be honest with you.
Nice.
Never leave home without them. And that's about it.
And what bag are you carrying?
I have the Pro Tactic. I think it's the 350 or the 300 maybe.
Okay.
So it just it's amazing. It fits everything in, including that big lens. So in that bag, I managed to fit the 3 lenses, the drone, and then I've got a load of filters as well for each different lenses, and step down rings and different kind of polarizers and stuff like that for each different lens as well. So it's a heavy bag. But then it has all the little mods and attachments on the side. So the tripod goes on the side, the coffee bottle in the other side. That's me.
The gas is strong with Dermot.
Yeah, look. Do you know what? I haven't, if I'm honest, you're not wrong, but I haven't upgraded since I bought that big lens. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to buy it for a while. Like, that was the expensive one. So, but like at the moment, I'm more than happy with my gear. Like, there's nothing that I'm seeing that I'm like, oh, I really need it for that. Yeah. Although the Mavic 3, I'm looking at that and I'm like, whoa, like when you see the enter, is it the
shiny, the city version?
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. So I saw that and I had a look at that. I thought, okay, but big money.
Big money.
Yeah, big money. Like, I can't justify that right now. So.
You know what? Reason number 27 for gas is that there's a newer version after coming out that's so much better than the one that was brilliant yesterday.
Yeah.
So, You're justified. Yeah. You're okay. And of all the items that you carry with you, there's one which is a VSP. It's a very solid product. It's a product you will not leave home without. You'd put your name to it if you could. So what's your VSP?
Mine would be, as I mentioned there, those Polar Pro filters, those ND filters for the drone. They're great. They're, as far as taking the shine off the water, as far as adding more contrast to the image, which is already, like I was saying, difficult enough with a drone. Especially if you're shooting in log as well for video, they just do wonders. So that would be my the one I've never left. And even with my old drone, I had a different type of filters, but they were never anything like these ones. So I have to say they're the dogs.
Yeah, winner. So Dermot, that's it, man. We're there. We're after getting through everything. I mean, I know they say time flies and you're having fun, but actually, I had a really good chat with you. I really enjoyed it. I mean, tell me, what's next for you now? So, what's on the horizon? You want to come to Cork? Okay, bring your passport. You got to get it stamped there.
Well, to start off, yeah, I've had a great time as well, so I appreciate you having me on, Darren. To be honest, this has been great fun. Yeah, so local stuff around the country for the summer. Then I'm going to do a little bit of traveling to Spain in September and get a couple of shots around there.
Nice.
But other than that, I'm just trying to focus on keep on developing my style of photography. Trying to, I was saying at the start there, trying to mature my photography a little bit. Let it kind of mature a little bit. Stop doing the crazy styles or the crazy edits as much, and try to bring it back a little bit. So again, it's just keep on learning and keep on exploring, and trying to challenge myself. So.
Right, that's the best way to do it, man. You know, every day is a school day. You get better every time you use the camera. So, you know, and in case people don't know, where can they find all of your amazing photos? What's your handle on the Instagram?
So it's at Dermot Garland, and same on Twitter at Dermot Garland, Facebook at Dermot Garland. Posting as much as I can.
Magic. Yeah. Well, look, what I'll do is I'll put all the links anyway into the show notes, and I'll put them into the group and stuff when I share out the images. But I think people will, you know, enjoy looking at your grid and following along on your, you know, progressive journey in photography. And I think it'll be something that, you know, you might even listen back to this in a couple of years' time and go, Jesus, what was I saying? But I guarantee you, you know, I guarantee you one thing I think is that you will find that as you go on and as you go on and as you go on, you just get better. You fine tune. And if you're already thinking that you're only fine tuning right now and your shots are certified bangers every single week, God knows what's going to be ahead in the next 2 years, man. It's been great to follow your work. It's been great to have the chats with you this evening, man. Thank you very, very much for coming on.
Man, cheers again for having me. Thank you again for all the kind words, and look forward to maybe talking to you again sometime.
All right, bye. Listen, guys, thanks very much for listening. From me in Cork to Dermot in Dublin. Until the next time, slán go fóill.
Cheers.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week. And remember, keep shooting.